Hello, you beautiful peoples. I'm Adam Glendora, and welcome to my 1000th video. Video number 1000. It's been 9 years. It's been 9 years since I started this channel. Technically, it was 9 years 3 weeks ago, but I did not have this video ready. I was not ready to do this video. I was not at 999 videos, so I had to make sure to get to that first. But this is not only my 1000th video, but it is also a celebration of being on YouTube for 9 years. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to be doing this. And I, as the title suggests, am going to be giving an honest description of the events of every single episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. This also includes the 3 special shorts that aired alongside the first few episodes of Season 3, and the pilot episode, as well as the Lost episode. I'm going to be covering those 5 as well. So that's 66 episodes in total that I'm going to have to cover. Let's go ahead and dive in. Episode 1, The Boy in the Iceberg. Sokka and Katara come across Aang and free him from an iceberg. We get a massive explanation as to how the world works, which leads into one of the most iconic intros to any animated show ever. Katara is shown to be a waterbender, the only waterbender in the entire South Pole, to boot. So she's had to basically self-teach herself everything. Everything that she currently knows, she's had to self-teach herself. And it's revealed that no one has seen an airbender in over 100 years. And so Aang's trying to get used to being around the members of the South Pole and trying to spend time with Katara, and they end up coming across a ship that has been there since near the start of the war. A Fire Nation ship that the locals believe is haunted, and going in there is strictly forbidden. But Aang and Katara decide to go in there anyway. They end up activating a booby trap and get themselves trapped in a room. And it's there on that ship where Aang finally puts together that he's been in that iceberg for over 100 years. And that's why he doesn't know about the war. That's why he didn't realize there was a war going on. And so they end up escaping. They get out of the ship and start heading back to the village. But someone caught on. We get introduced to major antag, later turned ally, Prince Zuko of the Fire Nation, as well as his uncle, Uncle Iroh. Are you kidding me? Connection unstable. Why? Why now of all times is it unstable? Okay, we back? We back? Okay. All right, so they end up getting the unwanted attention of Prince Zuko of the Fire Nation and his uncle. Zuko is after the Avatar, wants to capture the Avatar in order to restore his honor. But we don't exactly understand exactly what that means just yet. And so he sees Aang heading towards the Southern Water Tribe, and that directly leads into the second episode, The Avatar Returns. Zuko arrives. Zuko arrives at well, no, first, actually. After Aang Katara comes back, Aang is banished from the village because he took Katara somewhere that is forbidden. And so he ends up leaving. But then, almost immediately after he leaves, Zuko arrives and starts threatening the people of the Southern Water Tribe. So Aang comes back in order to help them and gives himself up to ensure that the people of the Southern Water Tribe are safe. So he goes with Zuko. He goes with Zuko and manages to escape from Zuko's men, only to then be pushed off of the edge of the boat by Zuko's fire. All the while, Katara and Sokka are on their way to save them on Appa, Aang's flying bison, which was briefly introduced in the first episode, but it didn't really do much. It left a big question mark as to whether or not this beast could actually fly. But in this episode, it actually shows yes, Appa can fly, and it is spectacular. It looks amazing. So they managed to get to Aang and help him defeat Zuko, Iroh, and the other firebenders and get away. And so the three of them start a journey to head to the North Pole to find a waterbending master to teach Aang waterbending, as well as Katara waterbending, with intentions of then traveling the world in order to find Earth and firebenders to teach Aang, so he can finally put an end to the war once and for all. So in our first two episodes, we got a good premise. We know we have a clear understanding of who the bad guy is. It's the Fire Nation. They're the bad guys, and in particular, it seems that the royal family are going to be a major problem throughout this series. We understand that Aang is insanely powerful. Aang is insanely powerful and needs to learn the other elements in order to become unbeatable, in order to become strong enough to end the war. We understand who each of these characters are, and we have a clear goal. So it does all of this in just two episodes. It manages to give you just enough information to where you're like, okay, we need to hurry up and do this, because every day this war goes on, people get hurt, people die. So the faster he masters all these elements, the better. So he doesn't have all the time in the world. He does have to hurry. But that's not gonna. But given Aang's free spirit, we also understand that that's not going to stop him from having a little fun here and there, enjoying himself every once in a while. But on to the third episode, the Southern Air Temple. In the Southern Air Temple, Aang, Katara, and Sokka all make their way to Aang's home. What was Aang's home? They make their way there, and everything seems to have changed. There's all these weeds, and the place has been overgrown by nature. And it's eerily quiet. And every time Aang starts feeling a little down, Katara and Sokka start trying to cheer him up. But then they enter a room filled with all of these statues, and they discover that every statue in this massive, sprawling room is a past life. It's a past life for the Avatar. That the Avatar continues to reincarnate over and over again. And that one Avatar, Avatar Roku, was the Avatar that came before Aang. The one that vanished. The one that vanished. So So we understand that. So we understand that Aang is not just the one and only Avatar. He's just the current one in the long line of avatars that have existed since who knows how long. Then a little lemur shows up. And Aang and Sokka begin chasing it. Eventually, Aang comes across the body of Monk Gyatso, the monk that raised him and taught him. He was like a father to him. He finds Monk Gyatso's body and ends up activating that same strange power that he accidentally activated during the two-part intro to the series. And we learn that is called the Avatar state. And he is angry. He is very angry. His whole culture has been destroyed. Everyone he ever knew and loved was gone. But Katara and Sokka end up reassuring him, telling him that he does still have a family, that the two of them are his family, and that they're never going to leave him. Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. So after that, Momo ends up deciding to go with the gang, and so that just leaves Aang, Appa, and Momo as the only ones that remain from that culture. They're all that's left of the Air Nation. Next episode, the Warriors of Kyoshi. Aang and friends end up on an island called Kyoshi Island, and end up getting captured. By a group of female warriors named the Kyoshi Warriors. Once they find out that Aang is the Avatar, they begin giving him a lot more attention than he's used to, and it ends up going to his head. And the team starts spending a bit more time on the island than they should. Sokka manages to train under the leader of the Kyoshi Warriors, Suki, in order to learn how to fight better. Zuko and his uncle manage to get to Kyoshi Island and start terrorizing the village. They start terrorizing the village, and it becomes very clear that the only way to get Zuko and his group to leave is if Aang and team ends up leaving first. So they leave, but not before Aang ends up using a water serpent in order to help put out the fires that Zuko and his men started in the village. After that, they fly away on Appa, and Zuko and his men follow quickly after. Next episode, episode 5, the King of Omashu. 100 years ago, Aang used to have a close friend in Omashu called Bumi, who he enjoyed calling a mad genius. And now, 100 years later, Aang is returning to Omashu. After a little mishap with a reoccurring carriage merchant, who will be showing up a lot throughout the series, who shows up a lot throughout the series. He ends up coming across the king, and the king decides to have Aang complete 3 deadly challenges. If he can do so, then him and his friends will be allowed to walk. Free. And in order to ensure that Aang cooperates, he put special crystal rings on Katara and Sokka. And these rings are called Creeping Crystal. And they continue to grow around Katara and Sokka's body until they completely cover him. It is meant to be a terrible fate. So Aang has no choice but to comply with these challenges if he wants to save his friends. He manages to complete each of the 3 challenges, the final one being a battle against the King of Omashu himself, who turns out to be one of the strongest earthbenders in the world. And figures out that the King of Omashu is actually his old friend Bumi. And the 2 of them have a nice reunion, and they're all allowed to go. Episode 6, Imprisoned. So the gang ends up coming across an earthbender named Haru and sees him earthbend. He runs off, so they follow him to a village. When they talk to him about his earthbending, they discover that apparently earthbending is illegal in this village because there are a bunch of firebenders that have taken away all earthbenders from the village. They've taken away all earthbenders from the village, and have imprisoned them somewhere on a metal boat, on a giant boat floating in the ocean. Haru ends up getting arrested by Fire Nation soldiers, and Katara feels horrible about it. So she ends up pretending to use earthbending with some help from Sokka and Aang in order to get herself arrested to help bust Haru out. Once there, she understands the situation and how bad it is on the ship, and so Aang and Sokka end up coming with an idea to use the coal for the ship in order to give the earthbenders a chance to fight back against their oppressors. After a good fight, they manage to defeat the Fire Nation, and all the earthbenders can return home. Excuse me. Next episode, Winter Solstice Part 1. Winter Solstice Part 1, the Spirit World. In this one, they discover that there is a burnt down forest near a village. When they get to the village, they hear about an angry spirit that arrives every night and takes one of the villagers. Aang tries to confront this spirit at night, and it doesn't seem to be working. Then Sokka ends up getting captured. Aang rushes after him, but it disappears. When Aang returns to the village, he ends up making the discovery that he is in the spirit world. Now, if any of you know my theories, you know that I personally don't think where he's at is in the spirit world. Because given how where he's at looks absolutely nothing like how the spirit world looks in literally every other time that an avatar goes there. So wherever he is, I don't think it's the spirit world. I think it's someplace between the physical world and the spirit world. I think it's somewhere between. But in any case, so after a talk with Avatar Roku's spirit, he discovers that there is going to be a winter solstice on a Fire Nation island that has a temple dedicated for Avatar Roku, and that if he gets there in time for the winter solstice, he'll be able to talk to Roku for a limited time. And Roku says that it's important that he be there because there is a lot of important information that he needs. So when he gets back, when he manages to get back to the real world, he understands what he has to do. He confronts the spirit one more time, manages to calm the spirit down, and the spirit returns all the people that it took, including Sokka. So, Winter Solstice Part 2, Avatar Roku. Aang, Sokka, and Katara all travel to the Fire Temple in order to meet up with Avatar Roku's spirit in time for the Winter Solstice. They arrive at the temple and start being attacked by the temple priests, all except for one. One of them that decides to help Aang, because it is part of the duty. It is part of the duty of the sages in order to help the Avatar. So this one sage decides to help Aang. They manage with some creative ideas from Sokka. They manage to get Aang into the room where he can speak to Roku. They get him in there, and Roku informs Aang that there is going to be a comet that will arrive at the end of summer. This comet arrived 100 years ago, and Fire Lord Sozin used its power against the air temples and wiped them out. And so now, now at the end of summer, the comet will return, and the current Fire Lord Ozai, is going to use its power to end the war once and for all. So with Avatar Roku's help, Aang and his friends managed to get out of there, and escape from both Zuko and Zhao. And yeah, I haven't really focused much on Zhao, mainly because he hasn't been much of a focus for Aang's story, more so Zuko's story. Throughout this, he's been kind of a rival to Zuko leading up to this. In the third episode, the Southern Air Temple, he battled against Zuko, and he discovered that the Avatar is alive, and battled against Zuko and lost. And he's been kind of an antagonist to Zuko more so than Aang so far in this. But here in the Winter Solstice Part 2, Avatar Roku, this is the point in the story where Zhao comes across Aang, where Zhao finally comes across Aang, for the first time. So, Zhao is definitely a problem that's going to have to be dealt with eventually. But for now, everyone manages to get away. Episode 9, the Waterbending Scroll. In this episode, Katara is frustrated that she can't seem to learn really advanced waterbending techniques, when it seems Aang is able to pick up on just about any waterbending super quickly since he's the Avatar. So, in any case, she comes across a waterbending scroll on a pirate ship and steals it from pirates. and Zuko and Iroh managed to find those pirates. Zuko and Iroh managed to find those pirates and basically strike a deal with them to get their scroll back, and Zuko ends up getting the Avatar. It all culminates in this big three group fight where Aang's group, the pirates, and Zuko's group are all fighting each other, and Aang's group ends up getting away. Then there's episode 11, The Great Divide. A lot of people consider this to be the worst episode in the series. Personally, I don't think it is. I personally don't think it is. I'm actually one of the few people that actually enjoys this episode. I actually really like this episode. Yeah, in this episode, there are two tribes, the Ganjins and the Zhangs. They've been fighting for over 100. They've been fighting for over 100 years, and they need to get across the Great Divide, the largest canyon in the Earth Kingdom. So Aang, Katara, and Sokka all decide to go with them to see if there is to see exactly why they've been fighting for over 100 years, and if there's any way to get the two tribes to make up and finally let go of this century-long grudge. And they do manage to get across, and it's only by working together are they able to get out of the canyon, as their guide's arms get broken, so he can no longer use earthbending to help get them out. Aang, with some clever word choices, manages to finally put the grudge to rest. Episode 12, The Storm. This is one of the most important episodes in the first season. Aang finally reveals to Katara exactly why he ran away from his home 100 years ago. He reveals why he ran. He reveals why he ran away. That he was told when he was 12 that he was the Avatar, when they should have waited till he was 16. But there were troubling signs that war was coming, and they wanted Aang to be prepared. So they told him early. And then he discovered that they planned on separating him from Monkey Yatso. And sending him somewhere far, far away where he could continue to train. That he was no longer allowed to be with the people he cared. He was no longer allowed to be with the people he cared about. And he was terrified of that happening, and so he just decided to run away. And then he got caught in a storm, wound up underwater, and froze the water around himself, as a means of saving his own life. The Avatar state activated and forced him to save his own life by freezing himself in ice. Meanwhile, Zuko, after having a little spat with his men, Iroh ends up explaining to Zuko's men exactly why Zuko is so obsessed with capturing the Avatar, and we learn that it's because Zuko, who had finally been allowed to sit in on a war council, spoke up against one of the generals. That the general wanted to sacrifice soldiers, an entire platoon of soldiers, as bait. And yeah, like he was correct in speaking out, but by speaking out in the Fire Lord's war room, he disrespected the Fire Lord himself, and so he would have no choice but to duel an Agni Kai against his own father. And an Agni Kai is a battle between two firebenders, and depending on what type of Agni Kai it is, it could be until one of them gives up or to the death. Zuko refused to fight his own father. He didn't want to fight his own father. He apologized for the disrespect, and his father burned his face and gave him that iconic scar that we know him for, and banished him from the Fire Nation. And he has to capture the Avatar, and only then can he return with his honor intact. And that is why Zuko is so obsessed. That's why Zuko is so obsessed with. That's why Zuko is so obsessed with capturing Aang. So at the end of the episode, when the storm is starting to clear, Aang and Zuko fly past each other, and they give each other a look. The Avatar gives Zuko hope for having his honor back. The Avatar is giving the enemy hope in his own way, just as he gives hope to his allies. And this episode really set the stage for the connection that Aang and Zuko would have throughout the rest of the series. Episode 13, the Blue Spirit. Aang goes to try to find some medicine for Sokka and Katara because they're getting sick. And while looking for medicine, he ends up being captured by Admiral Zhao's men. Zhao was promoted from commander to admiral. So he plans on keeping Aang alive. Keeping Aang alive and simply having him stay imprisoned, so that way he won't be able to stop the Fire Nation. But then Aang ends up getting saved by the Blue Spirit, someone wielding swords in a blue mask. They work together in order to escape. In order to escape Admiral Zhao. And it is discovered at the end, when the Blue Spirit is knocked out, Aang discovers that the Blue Spirit is actually Prince Zuko. Prince Zuko saved Aang because he did not want Admiral Zhao to get the credit for capturing the Avatar. So So, hair. So Aang and Zuko have a little heart-to-heart. They talk. And Aang asks Zuko that if they had known each other, if the two of them had known each other 100 years in the past, does Zuko think they could have been friends? And this question leaves Zuko questioning his own loyalties. It leaves Zuko questioning exactly what he wants. The next episode 14, The Fortune Teller. Katara, Aang, and Sokka all go visit a fortune teller in a village, and Katara becomes a little too obsessed with fortune telling, while Sokka is constantly trying to prove that that all of it is a hoax, that none of it is actually real. They soon discover, Aang and Sokka soon discover that a volcano is going to erupt, and it's a volcano that the fortune teller said would not erupt. So they work together with Katara in order to see that the village is going to be destroyed by the volcano. So everyone works together in order to reroute the lava over to the ocean. They try to reroute the lava over to the ocean, and Aang ends up saving the day with some of his airbending, cools down a whole lot of the lava, so the village will be safe. And I remember really liking this episode as a kid. I remember really enjoying that episode. Episode 15. All right, excuse me for just one moment. Apologies. I had to blow my nose. So in any case, the next episode, Bato of the Water Tribe. Katara and Sokka end up meeting Bato, who is an old friend of their father's, and he is supposed to be given a map that will lead him to Katara and Sokka's father. As they talk to Bato, Aang gets increasingly worried that his friends are going to abandon him, and that he'll be left all alone with nothing again. Aang ends up receiving the map and chooses to keep it and hide it from his friends. Once his friends find out about this, though, they do exactly what he was afraid of. And abandon him. Thus, kind kind of proving thus, kind of proving his fears correct. Um, and a lot of people like to blame Aang and say this was out of character, but no, he's. I don't think it was out of character for him, like in the slightest. This is a legitimate fear. This is a legitimate fear that he has. He's afraid of losing everyone that he cares about because he's already lost his entire culture. So the two of them is all he really has. They're the only family he's got left. So he's terrified of them just leaving him to go see their father, and just abandoning him completely. And that fear is what led to that decision. When it came to oh shoot, what happened? Shoot, what happened? Okay, good. Okay, apologies. I have a whole. I have the list of all the episodes up right now, and for some reason, it went away. All right, so, so he tried to explain exactly why he hid it from Sokka and Katara. He tried to explain it to them, but Sokka would not listen. He would not give him a chance to explain it, and just outright abandon him. And Katara quickly followed. Meanwhile, Zuko is hot on their tail. Zuko has enlisted the help of a bounty hunter named June that has a pet called a Shirshu, which can sniff out someone's scent no matter where they are in the world. And so eventually Sokka and Katara managed to realize their mistake and start heading back to help Aang. And there ends up being a really impressive fight between Aang and Zuko. And this is a fight that's been a long time coming. This is episode 15 of the first season, and this is the first time we've seen them fight this much. Aang was not really trying to fight fight Zuko in the second episode. He was trying to get away from Zuko, and they have not really had any sort of fight since then. This is the first time they're having a proper fight in the show. And it is an impressive fight. It is definitely an impressive fight. And even June and her Shirshu get in on the action, and they have to overwhelm the Shirshu's sense of smell by using a whole bunch of perfumes that are around. So they managed to get away. They managed to get away, and then that leads to episode 16, the Deserter. And in the Deserter, come on here. In the Deserter, they end up meeting a firebender named Zhong, voiced by Keon Young. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. I don't think I am. But He's actually his voice is a pretty reoccurring character in Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. There's a handful. He voices a handful of characters in both of those shows. So they really like utilizing this guy. And he's got a real nice voice. Like his voice is super cool. So yeah. So they come across him, and Aang wants to learn firebending. Aang wants to learn firebending, so he ends up Zhang reluctantly agrees to teach Aang, but Aang starts getting impatient and wanting to try firebending. He manages to make fire, but in the process, he accidentally ends up burning Katara. Katara goes to rest her hands in some cold water, only to discover that she actually has healing powers. And that is supposed to be a rare trait among waterbenders. Oh, apologies, needed something cold. So, as they're talking, and as the episode continues on, it's revealed that Admiral Zhao used to be Zhang's student, and now Admiral Zhao comes across Aang and has an actual fight with Aang. Though it's more of a one-sided fight, since Aang is using Zhao's anger against him to destroy his own ships. And I find it interesting, the contrast between Aang's fight with Zhao versus his fight with Zuko. With Zuko, he actually takes Zuko as a serious threat. Where Zhao, he's constantly just toying with him and making him look like a clown. So yeah, after defeating Admiral Zhao, they once again managed to get away. And then we go on to episode 17, Northern Air Temple. In this episode, Aang, Katara, and Sokka managed to get to the Northern Air Temple and discover that it's being occupied by a bunch of non-benders who have industrialized the Northern Air Temple and have violated a sacred place. And what's more, they discover that the mechanic behind all of this construction has been working for the Fire Nation. In exchange for allowing them to live peacefully, he makes contraptions for them. He makes contraptions for them. But he doesn't want to work for the Fire Nation. The episode makes it very clear that the mechanist does not want to work for the Fire Nation, but he wasn't exactly given a choice. So now they end up fighting back. They managed to create an air balloon and managed to fight back against the Fire Nation and managed to beat them. However, the air balloon they used did end up getting into Fire Nation hands. So now the Fire Nation will be able to have control over the skies. So after that, we're on to episode 18 of the first season. The Waterbending Master. Aang, Sokka, and Katara have finally made it to the North Pole. They finally made it to the. They have finally made it to the North Pole, and they've managed to find a waterbending teacher for Aang. But this waterbending teacher refuses to teach Katara because she is a woman. And it's revealed that in the northern water tribe, women do not get to learn regular waterbending. They are only allowed to learn how to heal. That's it. And Katara, Katara hates this, and so she challenges the master waterbender, to a fight. And even when he refuses, she just starts outright attacking him, actively trying to piss him off so he'll actually fight her. And she actually manages to hold her ground against a master. She manages to hold her ground. Against her, and he recognizes how strong she is, and she recognizes how strong she is, and decides to teach her. Meanwhile, Admiral Zhao decides to send pirates to try to assassinate Zuko. This then leads to the two-part finale to season 1, The Siege of the North, Part 1, and The Siege of the North, Part 2. In Part 1, the Northern Water Tribe prepares for an invasion by the Fire Nation, being led by General Zhao, who has now been promoted again from admiral. And Iroh is with General Zhao, and Zuko managed to escape. Zuko managed to escape his fate, and Iroh has given him an opportunity to go find the Avatar. So, so it is made quite clear throughout the episode that the Water Tribe cannot defeat Zhao's fleet on its own. So he decides to go to the spirit world in order to see if he can get some help from the ocean and moon spirits. Along with him is Princess Yue of the Northern Water Tribe, who throughout the last couple of episodes has been developing a relationship with Sokka. And it's revealed that she was once saved by the Moon Spirit. She was once saved by the Moon Spirit. That a portion of the Moon Spirit's power is within her. So while trying to keep track of Aang's body while his spirit is in the spirit world, Zuko shows up and attacks Katara. Manages to best her, and then captures Aang, and then captures Aang and starts and heads to the northmost part of the North Pole, a sprawling tundra with harsh blizzards. In Siege of the North Part 2, Sokka, Katara, and Yue all follow Zuko in order to try to save Aang. Aang discovers what needs to be done, in order to save the Northern Water Tribe. After defeating Zuko, they decide to go ahead and save him, and leave him somewhere where he'll be safe, instead of leaving him out in the cold to die. Once they get back, Zhao is there, and Zhao plans on destroying one of the koi fish that's at the spirit pond that Aang was meditating at in the previous episode, because those koi fish are the ocean and moon spirits. And he chooses that he's going to destroy the moon spirit, take away the moon in its entirety. So waterbenders will lose their ability to bend water. So he kills it. And then Aang ends up activating the Avatar state and merging with the ocean spirit in order to become this gigantic massive water, a massive spirit water, and completely wipes out the entire Fire Nation force. Meanwhile, Zuko finally has his final showdown with Zhao. Manages to beat him. Then Zhao is grabbed by the spirit water, with intention to pull him down into the spirit world, where he will remain for all eternity. Zuko offers his hand to help save him, and Zhao decides that his pride is worth more than his own life. So he refuses to take Zuko's hand and ends up being dragged into the spirit world. Zuko and Iroh managed to get away. And Yue sacrifices herself in order to become the new moon spirit, seeing as how she has a portion of the moon spirit within her. So she sacrifices herself to become the new moon spirit. And the moon is restored. The battle has been won, and Aang, Katara, and Sokka all decide to set off towards the Earth Kingdom in order to search for an earthbending master to teach Aang earthbending. As Katara has been chosen to be Aang's waterbending teacher. And that is season 1. We are an hour into this, and we have covered season 1 of the series. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh dear. So, now that I've covered season 1, I'm just going to give. I'm just going to mention like the episodes that really stuck out to me. That always stick out to me whenever I watch the series. For me, the 2-part beginning, The Boy in the Iceberg and The Avatar Returns, obviously those two standout episodes. Great way to introduce everything about this world and the main characters. The Southern Water Tribe, learning about like the fate of Aang's people. That's absolutely tragic. I feel really bad about that. The King of Omashu was always a really fun episode to me. It was really nice. It was really cool seeing all these different challenges that Aang had to go through. Winter Solstice Part 2, Avatar Roku. Hearing about how the comet is going to come and basically allow the current Fire Lord to end the war once and for all. That gave a sense of urgency to what Aang needs to do. He has to master all 4 elements within a year, or else the world is going to be destroyed. So there is a great sense of urgency in there. Episode 12, The Storm. Again, one of the most important episodes in the entire first season. The Blue Spirit was also a really important episode. I really enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed The Fortune Teller. Honestly, I found myself that was one of the 3 episodes I found myself watching the most out of all the episodes in season 1. That was one of the 3 episodes I found myself watching the most. I don't know why. I'm not sure exactly why I loved that episode as a kid, but I remember having a really fun time with that episode. Then there's The Deserter, another one of the 3 episodes that I found myself really loving as a kid. I really like Jong as a character, and that I always thought that was a really cool the relationship between him and Aang, and him and Roku, him and Zhao. I always thought that was really cool. I really liked that episode. And then the Waterbending Master, seeing Katara fight against a actual waterbending master was so cool. That was one of the most hype moments for Katara. Actually, no, that was the most hype moment for Katara in the first season. Seeing her go up against a master and actually hold her ground against him, that was amazing. I loved that. And then, of course, you've got the 2-part finale, Siege of the North Parts 1 and 2, which were both fantastic. It was a great way to end the first season, and give us a little bit of a setup for season 2. So that was really good. I really enjoyed the first season. All in all, I would say season 1 had some really good highs. And there weren't necessarily any lows per se, because I enjoy every single one of these episodes. But I would say the high points weren't nearly as high as the high points for seasons 2 or 3. I absolutely adore the high points of seasons 2 and 3, and I feel like the high points of seasons 2 and 3 there's a lot more high points in those 2 seasons compared to season 1. So season 1, I would say, is my least favorite of the 3 seasons, simply for that reason. But it is still a good season. I still enjoyed it. And I will not be giving any ratings to any of these episodes, because I can't think of a single episode in this whole series that I would give less than a 7. Even the weakest episodes, like Bato of the Water Tribe, I would still give that a 7. I would not give it anything less. So it's just, it would not be a good comparison. It really would not be a good comparison. So I'm not going to give it I'm not going to do ratings for this. So I'm just going to keep going, and then I'll just give my thoughts on the season as a whole. Okay. Book 2, Earth. Episode 1, the Avatar. Episode 1, the Avatar State. In this one, the group ends up at a Earth Kingdom military base, where a general, there ends up trying to convince Aang to face the Fire Lord using the Avatar State. And he decides to go ahead and see if there's any way to get him into the Avatar State to trigger it. And nothing seems to be working. So the general decides that it would be a good idea. The general decides it would be a good idea to threaten Katara's life. And that certainly triggers the Avatar State, but in the worst way. And Aang ends up completely wiping out the whole base. He doesn't kill anyone, but the number of injured went up by 100%. So after knocking the general, they just decide, yeah, we're just gonna go to Omashu on our own, since we want Bumi to teach Aang earthbending. Meanwhile, Zuko ends up meeting up with his sister Azula, who tricks him into trying to come home, thinking that they're going to be welcomed back. When they're actually going to be prisoners. Zuko and Iroh manage to figure this out and escape, and now they're on the run. They're they are considered fugitives from the Fire Nation. So, episode 2, the Cave of Two Lovers. The team comes across hippies who want to go through a secret love cave that leads to Omashu. The skies above the cave are being protected by a bunch of Fire Nation soldiers. So they decide to go in. So they all decide to go into the cave, where they end up getting trapped and separated. Aang and Katara end up Aang, Katara, and Appa end up being separated from Sokka, Momo, and the hippies. And we get some interesting backstory to the kingdom of Omashu. And they Katara and Aang out where Sokka and the hippies end up relying on badger moles, giant badger moles, in order to help get them out of the caves. So they arrive at Omashu and find out that it's been taken over by Fire Nation. They manage to find where all of the survivors are. They find out where all of the Omashu survivors are, and manage to find a way to get them out of the city. After getting them out of the city, however, they find out that they have one extra, that a toddler managed to find their way into the group. And this toddler is actually the son of the governor who is currently running Omashu. So They intend to make a trade. The governor's son for King Boomy, who they still have captive. But it's not going to be that easy, because throughout this episode, you see Azula traveling in order to get a small group of friends together. She goes to her friend Ty Lee, who's working at a circus, and convinces her to join her on her quest to hunt down her brother, her uncle, and the Avatar. Then she goes to Omashu in order to convince May in order to join her. So the three of them end up confronting Aang, Katara, and Sokka in order to make the trade. This leads to a big fight. Where both groups fight against each other, and we learn that Ty Lee has the ability to temporarily take a person's bending away by blocking their chi points. And Aang manages to get to free Boomy from the chains that are binding the coffin that he's stuck in. And they manage to get away from Azula temporarily, and Boomy tells him that, hey, I'm not the one you're looking for. I'm not the Earthbender that you need. You need to find someone who waits and listens before striking. And he tells Aang that he can't afford to leave Omashu. That he will stay behind, and he'll get out when the time is right. So after that, they manage to return the governor's son and continue on. Meanwhile, now Azula and her team are hot on their trail. Episode 4 of season 2, The Swamp. In this episode, I would have to say this is probably one of the weaker episodes of the season. They end up going to a swamp, and Katara and Sokka start seeing visions of people that they lost, people they loved, and Aang sees a vision of someone he's never met. It's just they're trying to figure out exactly what it means. They're trying to figure out exactly what it all means. But nothing really of note really happens in the episode. We don't get much in the way of Zuko and Iroh. We don't get much in the way of Azula. So they go to the swamp, they see visions, they end up leaving. It's a pretty straightforward episode. Episode 5, Avatar Day. They go to a really strange city where there's an Avatar Day, and they burn statues of avatars, as they are very anti-Avatar, and they worship a man called Chen the Conqueror. And claim that Avatar Kyoshi killed him. So Sokka and Katara basically start being detectives and start trying to figure out a way to clear Aang's name. It doesn't work, and he's put on trial and sentenced to death, only for a bunch of Fire Nation mercenaries to show up, prepared to destroy the city. And the mayor of the city agrees to drop all charges against Aang if he saves them. And so he does. Aang and the team manage to save the city, and they all start worshiping the Avatar after that. It's a very weird episode. But we do learn that Suki and the other Kyoshi warriors decided to leave Kyoshi Island in order to go help out in the war. So we know that they're doing stuff. So, episode 6, The Blind Bandit. This episode introduced my favorite character in the whole series, Toph. Toph's introduction was a fantastic introduction. The team ends up going to a underground, what is essentially an underground boxing match, but it's bending. So they managed to see Toph in action, who is a blind earthbender who looks to be about the same age as Aang. And they try to figure out exactly where she comes from and manage to find her. They manage to find her home, and Aang and Toph start to form a bond, and they become friends. Only to then be captured by the other members of the underground bending arena. That believe they got they got their money gypped. They got their money cheated out of them. So they start holding them hostage in order to hold them for ransom. Toph's father agrees to pay the ransom to get his daughter back, and then Toph decides to battle against all of them in order to save Aang. And she does. These are all earthbending masters, and she wipes the floor with each of them. And she then decides to run away from home and travel the world with Aang, Katara, and Sokka. And so she is going to be his earthbending teacher. And two men are sent to find her and bring her back home by her father. Next, and by the end of the episode, Zuko Zuko and Iroh have split up. Zuko decides that he has to find his own way in the world. And so he wants to go it alone for a while. So, in the next episode, Zuko Alone, we learn all about Zuko's past. We learn all about Zuko's past. We learn about how his sister was a prodigy for firebending, and he always had to work really hard at his firebending in order to see any progress. That he had a very loving mother who disappeared one night. That his father tried to convince the previous Fire Lord. His father tried to convince the previous Fire Lord to disown Iroh and name him heir. after Iroh had lost his son. And the previous Fire Lord didn't like that idea. And so he told his father that his father needs to learn what it's like to lose his firstborn. So his mother did something. His mother did something to save Zuko's life and make it so that Zuko could be spared whilst having his father still become Fire Lord. And it's never outright stated exactly what she did, but it's heavily implied. It is heavily implied throughout the series that she killed the previous Fire Lord and forged a will. Forged a will naming Ozai, Zuko's father, the new Fire Lord. And then she left. She disappeared. So, next episode, episode 8. Next episode, episode 8, The Chase. Zuko is still chasing after Aang. Aang, Katara, Zuko, Aang, Katara, Sokka, and Toph are all trying to sleep, and yet this strange, almost train-like vehicle keeps following them, and they keep having to book it out of there over and over again. It's springtime. It's springtime. It's springtime everywhere they go. Appa is leaving a trail behind for this vehicle to follow. A fact that is pointed out by Toph. After an argument, Toph decides to leave the group, and she comes across Iroh. They have a nice chat, and Katara and Sokka end up leading Appa, end up flying with Appa across the river, thinking that they'll be safe from Azula's team. They're not, and Appa ends up having to defeat Azula's teammates. Meanwhile, Azula ends up confronting Aang. Azula confronts Aang, and then Zuko shows up, and it is a 3-way showdown. It is a 3-way showdown, but eventually Katara and Sokka both show up, and then Iroh shows up, and then Toph shows up, and now all 6 of them are teaming up against Azula, because every single person there understands that Azula is the biggest threat, that they all have a common enemy with Azula. And so Azula takes an opportunity to hit Iroh with some lightning, and then use the chaos and confusion to get away. So the team leaves, and so the team finally leaves and finally gets some sleep. Episode 9, Bitter Work. Aang and Toph finally begin Aang's earthbending training. They begin Aang's earthbending training, and Aang manages to get all of the basics down, but cannot seem to find the courage to stand firm and earthbend. And so meanwhile, After Iroh heals, he starts teaching. He starts trying to teach Zuko how to redirect lightning, a skill that will become very useful later on in the series. By the end of the episode, Aang finally has the courage and determination to stand his ground and finally earthbend. Episode 10, The Library. The halfway point. The halfway point of the season. Professor Z, they made the team meets a professor called Professor Zay, and he tells them about Wan Shi Tong's spirit library, and they decide to go. They decide to go there, for as part of Sokka's vacational request, as they were taking some time off to relax. So once they get there, they start searching around and manage to find. They start searching around and manage to find out about something called the Darkest Day in Fire Nation history, and they discover that the Darkest Day was a solar eclipse. That firebenders lose their firebending during a solar eclipse, and they discover that another solar eclipse is coming in a few months. It's happening in just a few months. During the middle of summer, and that's fantastic. That's fantastic news. It means it's their best chance to finally bring down the Fire Lord once and for all. Wan Shi Tong, however, hears about how they plan on using this information to bring down the Fire Nation, and decides that he's had enough of humans only using his knowledge to get one up on other humans. So he decides to sink the library. So Aang, Katara, and Sokka all end up trying to leave, while Professor Say decides that he would rather stay, that he could spend an eternity in there. Meanwhile, on the outside, Toph stays out there. Toph stays outside with Appa, and Toph stays outside with Appa, and a bunch of thieving sandbenders show up and end up kidnapping Appa, while the library is sinking and Toph is trying to hold it up. She's not able to protect Appa and hold it up, and so she has to hold it up. She has no choice but to hold it up while Appa is taken away. Appa ends up being away. Appa ends up being away from the group for like 8 episodes. Like, with the library being the first episode where he's taken away, he's gone. He's going to be gone throughout a good chunk of the rest of the season. Trying to find Appa is what initiates the rest. Is what essentially initiates the rest of the season. So, episode 11, The Desert. So, We're halfway. We're halfway through the series. God. An hour and a half. And all of this is without cuts. I'm not cutting it. I can't cut anything out of this. So it's just 3 hours of me talking. Wow, this is tough. I'm never doing something like this again. Oh God, this is so tough. So, episode 11, the desert. So in the desert, so in the episode the desert, Aang, Katara, Talca are all hang on. Here we go. So and to find a way. Saga ends up hallucinating on some cactus juice. So I might have to go get a new drink in the middle of this. So nothing really happens in this one. They discover what sandbenders had kidnapped. So they end up getting out of the desert with plans to go to Ba Sing Se. After that, we move on to episode 12, The Serpent's Pass. And technically, episode 12 and 13 is a two-part episode. It is a two-part episode called when it was on television, it was called Journey to Ba Sing Se, Part 1, The Serpent's Pass. And then Journey to Ba Sing Se, Part 2, The Drill. For Part 1, the team ends up coming across a couple that's expecting a baby, and they decide their passports have been stolen. Their tickets and passports were stolen. So they decide to help them out by leading them through the Serpent's Pass. And on their way, as they're about to head to the Serpent's Pass, they end up meeting up with Suki. And Suki helps them get through the Serpent's Pass. And by the end of it, Sokka and Suki make it official and become a couple. Meanwhile, Zuko and Iroh, while still on the run, they decide to go to Ba Sing Se, and so they're on a ferry to get there, and they end up meeting Jet, who is trying to lead a new life. Wait, did I talk about Jet? Did I talk about the episode of Jet? Oh shit! I don't think I did. I think I might have skipped Jet. I forgot about the episode Jet. Holy crap! I forgot about Jet. Whoops. Okay, well, very brief summary of Jet. Jet's an a-hole. Jet's an a-hole. He pretends to be a Robin Hood type guy when he actually will go around. When he actually has no problems beating up and killing old men and children that are from the Fire Nation. People who haven't actually done anything wrong. And he has no problems with just killing them. Katara, Sokka, and Aang end up finding out about what an a-hole he is and end up stopping his plan. So there's a brief summary of Jet from season 1. I'm pretty sure I forgot about that. Whoops, missed that episode. All right. Well, in this, he's trying to start over. He's trying to start over. So he's trying to start over. He's trying to start over. So, for the people on the ferry. And then and then for Journey to Ba Sing Se Part 2, the drill. Aang and the gang end up discovering that there is a massive drill that is going to drill through the giant walls of Ba Sing Se in order to allow the Fire Nation to invade. So they come up with the idea to bring down the drill from the inside by destroying the support pillars. Inside the drill, and then allowing Aang to deliver a final blow up top. So they managed to do all of that while evading Mei and Ty Lee, and Aang has a fight with Azula on top of the giant drill, and they managed to bring it down. Meanwhile, Jet tries to convince Zuko to join the Freedom Fighters, and Zuko doesn't want to. Then Jet ends up discovering that Zuko and Iroh are firebenders, and he immediately decides, okay, I'm back on my war path again. So he's back to wanting revenge again. But the team manages to save the city and become Team Avatar. Sokka comes up with a team name for them, and it's Team Avatar. So now, in the next episode, City of Walls and Secrets, Team Avatar is finally in Ba Sing Se. They are eager to talk to the Earth King about the upcoming eclipse, as well as search for Appa. But they are hindered at every turn by Ju-Di, the one who is supposed to be their guide throughout the city. So they end up infiltrating a special event for the Earth. They end up infiltrating a special event, a special dinner for the Earth King, in order to try to talk to him, only to end up meeting with Long Feng. Forgot his name for just a second there. They end up meeting with Long Feng and basically discover that Long Feng is basically in charge of Ba Sing Se and not necessarily the Earth King. That the Earth King is more so just a figurehead than anything else. So, so after that, the next episode, Appa's Lost Days. Oh, no, that's not it. No, here it is. Okay, almost forgot this episode. Jeez, almost made the same mistake twice in the video. The next episode is Tales of Ba Sing Se. In Tales of Ba Sing Se, it's a handful of mini stories about what each of the characters are doing while they're in Ba Sing Se. So there's not much to say about this. Qatar and Toph have a girls' day out and get makeovers. Sokka ends up impressing a bunch of ladies with his poetry. Aang helps a zookeeper build a new zoo. Zuko goes out on a date. Iroh helps a bunch of people around the city and holds a funeral. An anniversary funeral for his son. And Momo searches through Ba Sing Se to see if he can find Appa. There's not much to say. They are very self-contained stories, but they're all very nice stories. They're all very nice, very sweet. And then Appa's Lost, and then the next episode is Appa's Lost Days, and it shows Appa's journey after being kidnapped by Sandbenders. It shows exactly what happened. I got hair. It's bugging. Got hair that's bugging me. Okay, got it. Like, I hate that when like part of my mustache like curls up and like gets stuck in my nose. Oh, that's so irritating. That irritates my nose so much. I hate it. So, yeah, there's not much to say about Appa's Lost Days. It just kind of shows like what Appa went through when trying to reunite with Aang and all the things he went through. And it does show that at one point Suki found Appa. And was planning on returning Appa to Aang, but then was found by Azula and her team, and defeated and captured. And that's the last we'll see of Suki for a while. We won't get to see her again for quite a while. So, let's see. Yeah, we won't get to see. Yeah, we don't even get. She doesn't get freed for like a good 20 episodes. So she spends pretty much an entire season's worth of content captured. So, but then we got episode 17, Lake Laogai. With Lake Laogai, they discover that after Jet had caused a ruckus with trying to expose Zuko and Iroh, he was brainwashed, and they used that knowledge to try to find the Dai Li's secret headquarters, which is Lake Laogai. It's underneath. There is a secret headquarters underneath Lake Laogai, so they go there. Thinking that maybe that's where they have Appa. And they get there, and They end up fighting against. They end up fighting against Long Fang and all of his Daily agents. Um, there's a massive fight where Jet, his freedom fighters, and Team Avatar are all working together in order to bring down the Dai Li. And meanwhile, Zuko, having found out that Aang is in Ba Sing Se, decides to search for Aang's bison on his own. Finds out about the Dai Li's secret headquarters, and then goes there, manages to find Appa, and is confronted by Iroh. And Iroh tells him, "Hey, stop this! It's time you stop doing what other people tell you to do, and actually think for yourself. What do you want? What do you want to do?" And Zuko decides to set Appa free. Then Appa ends up returning to Aang and manages to defeat Long Fang. So after that, they head to the Earth King's palace, lay waste to all of his guards, and tries to tell the Earth King about the war. He doesn't believe him at first, but after showing him the outer wall of Ba Sing Se and the drill that's going through it, he believes that they're telling the truth, and he ends up having Long Fang arrested. And so they managed to get the Earth King's support in mobilizing an entire army in order to fight against the Fire Nation during the solar eclipse. Towards the end of the episode, they learn that there's an intelligence report stating where Katara and Sokka's dad are. There's a letter from Toph's mother saying that she's in the city and wants to see her, and there's a letter from a guru that was attached to Appa, saying that he wants to help teach Aang how to control the Avatar state. So they all decide to split up in order to do everything. It turns out that Toph's mother did not send the letter. It was actually the two that were sent to find her. They kidnapped her in a metal box, and throughout the episode, Zuko was going through a metamorphosis. His decision to do the right thing at Lake Laogai was in massive conflict with his own image of himself. That he was at war within his own mind and body, and he wasn't sure exactly who he was. So then episode 19 comes around, the Guru. Aang ends up beginning his training to learn to control the Avatar state with Guru Patik, who it turns out was a personal friend of Monk Gyatso. And while he's doing that, Sokka ends up reuniting with his father, while Katara stays behind at Ba Sing Se in order to help plan for the invasion. Meanwhile, Zuko has finally gotten out of his metamorphosis, and he is happy. He's actually happy. He feels content. He feels like he is right where he needs to be, right where he wants to be. And so then at the end of the Guru, Katara is captured. Katara is captured. As it turns out that the Kyoshi warriors that had arrived at the start of the episode were actually Azula and her two friends. They showed up and they showed up and they managed to capture Katara. They managed to capture Katara. Meanwhile, Toph manages to create metal bending. She creates metal bending and manages to surpass all other earthbenders in the world in doing so. So Aang has a vision of Katara being captured and decides to leave instead of finishing his training. So he leaves. He goes to pick up Sokka, and then they start heading back to Ba Sing Se and end up finding Toph along the way. And once they get back, they are greeted by Iroh. It turns out that Iroh and Zuko were both invited to serve tea to the Earth King, but it was a trap from Azula in order to capture them. Iroh managed to get away, but Zuko did not. And so all of them decide to team up in order to save Katara, Zuko, and the Earth King, and bring down Azula. So, so they managed to rescue. The Earth King and Zuko and Katara, and then Iroh has a heart-to-heart with Zuko and tells him that it's time for him to choose. He is at the crossroads of destiny, and that he needs to choose his path. He needs to choose a path. And then Azula shows up and starts saying a bunch of pretty words in order to try to convince Zuko to team up with her and help capture Ba Sing Se. Zuko makes his decision and decides to help Azula, betraying his uncle, who had stood by his side the whole time. And Aang goes into the Avatar state. But then is then shot full of lightning by Azula. And Katara manages to get him out of there. Katara manages to get him out of there, but Iroh is captured, and Ba Sing Se has fallen. The Earth Kingdom is in ruins. Now, this would lead into normally this would lead into the first episode of season 3, but there are actually a few special episodes that I'm going to cover before I get into the final season. First of which is the pilot episode. In the original pilot episode for the series, things looked a lot different. For one thing, Katara was actually named Kaya in the pilot episode. A name that would later go on to be used for Katara and Aang's daughter in Legend of Korra. So, another difference is that in the pilot episode, things were less serious and more goofy. They felt a bit more like a Saturday morning cartoon than a episode by more than a episodic storyline. It didn't feel like an overarching storyline across multiple episodes. It was very much comedic Saturday morning cartoon style, and in the episode, Zuko is trying to bring Aang down when Aang, Sokka, and Kaya are all just relaxing, enjoying themselves, and there ends up being a big fight between him and Zuko, that has a lot of slapstick, a lot of comedy, and he manages to beat Zuko, and the three of them get away on Appa. It's short. It was only like 15 minutes. It was a 15-minute pilot episode, but it's still an entertaining pilot episode. And you can definitely see that there are definitely some things in that pilot episode that still made their way into the main show. So it's a good pilot episode. Then next is the Lost episode. Now, the Lost episode was a cut episode that was meant to take place between seasons 2 and 3, and was meant to show exactly what Aang's spirit was doing during the few weeks that he was out between seasons. That his spirit was in the spirit world and going on a spiritual journey where he was meeting other members of other past lives. Not just Roku and Avatar Kyoshi, but also Avatar Korok and Avatar Yang Chen. So he would meet up with them and learn about their stories. He would learn about their stories and would learn things about their pasts, and learn that all avatars have made mistakes. They've all made mistakes, but they've all been human. And that they need to be human because in order to be a bridge between the spirit and the human worlds, they need to understand both sides. And to understand both sides, they need to experience the human experience. They need to feel joy, sadness, anger, loss, happiness, love. They need to experience all of this stuff in order to have the full human experience, in order to understand how to best serve both humans and spirits. It's a great way to learn about the pasts of a few different avatars, and it's a really good episode. It's only 14 minutes long, and you can actually find the Lost episode on YouTube. You can actually find it. It's not that hard to find. It's really good. And then there are the Chibi shorts. There are 3 Chibi shorts that aired after. There are 3 Chibi shorts that aired after episodes. That aired after episodes 2, 3, and 4 of the 3rd season. There's Chibi Bending Battle, which is Aang, Katara, Toph, and Zuko all explaining why their element is the best element ever. Each one of them is trying to explain why their element is the best element. And it's cute. It's a really cute. It's a really cute story. It's a really cute story. Each one of these is only like 3.5 minutes long. Each of these shorts is only 3.5 minutes long, so they're really cute. The second one is Swamp Skiing Throwdown, where Sokka is just trying to make a water purification device, and Aang's constantly messing it up with his swamp skiing, and so Sokka ends up trying the swamp skiing and ends up loving it, but then ends up fumbling and crashes, and that's pretty much it. It's a funny little short. Then school time shipping. Then there's school time shipping, which is the last of the three shorts. And school time shipping, shows all the characters if they were in school, and they're getting ready for a dance. And so Sokka has Suki and Yue fighting over him, and he has to decide who he wants to ask to the dance. Meanwhile, Aang wants to ask Katara to the dance, but then she's got Jet, Haru, and Zuko all trying to win her affection. And so he's basically competing with the three of them in order to figure out who exactly is going to take her to the dance. And by the end of it, turns out the Blue Spirit, not Zuko, someone else dressed as the Blue Spirit, is going to the dance with her, because we see the Blue Spirit and Zuko in the exact same place at the exact same time. And Zuko is dumbfounded by this turn. And she decides to go to the dance with with this mysterious Blue Spirit. And yeah, they're very short, 3.5 minutes for each one, but they're really cute. They're cute stories. Between all of them, it's like almost 11 minutes. It's almost 11 minutes of content between all three shorts put together, and you can find you can find a compilation of all three shorts here on YouTube. So it's not hard to find these shorts. They're cute. They're cute. They're fun shorts. But that's it. That's all the shorts. That's all the specials. That's the lost episode, the pilot, all of it. So next is the final season for the show, season 3 Fire. Before we move on to that, though, the episodes that really stood out to me for Book 2 Earth, the Cave of Two Lovers. I get a kick out of the hippies in that episode. And I do love the relationship progression that we get for Aang and Katara's relationship. I do love that. That progression is really nice. And seeing Sokka slowly lose his mind while being around the hippies is just super funny. So So there's that, and then there's the Blind Bandit, Toph's introduction. Like, I still stand by that. That is like among my top 10 favorite episodes in the whole series. Like, that was a perfect introduction to her character, and she immediately cemented herself as my favorite character in the series with her introduction episode. The chase, it was great. The chase was another great episode. It was great to see the team like really on edge and really like pushing themselves to their limits. And the three-way fight between Zuko, Azula, and Aang was amazing, and it led to like all six main characters teaming up against Azula, which was awesome. The library was another really cool episode. I loved the idea that this is a library that has all the info in the entire world. It has all the information in the whole world, and that's just really cool. That's a really cool idea. The desert, I also really liked the desert because it had a lot of good comedy, especially with Sokka on cactus juice. That was just an endless source of entertainment for me growing up. The Tales of Ba Sing Se is another great episode. Like I said before, it's a pretty straightforward episode, not a whole lot to talk about, but it is it is great to see all these different sides to the characters, and see different sides of them that we didn't get to see before. Lake Laogai, this episode really stood out to me mostly just because of the massive fight between Team Avatar and the Dai Li. That fight was incredible. I absolutely love that fight. It's so good. The choreography, the way every character is able to work off of each other and work together as a team flawlessly. It's so good. It's so cool. And then the two-part finale, The Guru and The Crossroads of Destiny, both fantastic episodes. They're both really good. Toph manages to create metal bending, which is awesome. It's so cool. It's one of the coolest moments in the show, seeing her actually put a dent in the metal container. It's awesome. And the big final four-way fight between Zuko, Azula, Aang, and Katara. Seeing the four of them fight it off together like that was so cool. That was awesome. I absolutely adored that. And then, as far as like the 5 specials that that I was talking about, the pilot episode is fine. It's a fine pilot episode. The chibi episodes are all very cute. They're all very cute, enjoyable. But between all 5 of them, the one that I would say is the one out of those 5 special episodes that I would say is my favorite is the Lost episode, just because I love learning about past avatars and learning more about like what they were like when they were around. That's really cool. I love that. That's awesome. So yeah, there we go. So that's all of that. So now we're on to book 3, Fire. Before that, though, I'm gonna go get another drink, because if I don't, I'm gonna start coughing, and I'm not gonna be able to keep going. I need to make sure to keep my throat, like, make sure I don't lose my throat, because I've already been talking like almost nonstop for 2 hours and 10 minutes now. So I'm gonna go get a drink. Be right back. Uh, okay. All right, got it. Okay. So, episode 1 of season 3 of book 3, Fire, which is episode 41 in the whole series. The Awakening. Aang wakes up on a Fire Nation cruiser. It's been 3 weeks since the loss at Ba Sing Se. And he has hair now. And he finds out that the world thinks the Avatar is dead. The whole world thinks the Avatar is dead. And Aang is trying to come to terms with that fact. Meanwhile, Zuko has been welcomed back into the Fire Nation as the Crown Prince. And Zuko has started dating May. And it turns out that Azula had lied to their father and said that Zuko was the one who brought down the Avatar, not her. And that's because she suspects that the Avatar might still be alive. And if the Avatar is alive, well, then she can just blame it on Zuko and say that he failed once again to kill the Avatar. So the episode basically just has Aang trying to come to terms with the fact that, like, you know, the world thinks that he's dead and that he needs to, like, let the world think that for a while until the eclipse comes. Then episode 2, the headband. After getting some Fire Nation clothing, Aang is mistaken for a student at a Fire Nation school. And from there, the episode basically becomes Footloose. Essentially, the school doesn't allow dancing, so he creates a dance party for all of his schoolmates, and teaches them all to the joy of dancing, and then they end up getting away, and that's it. There's not really much else to it. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. Hopefully there's no more interruptions. Okay, so next episode, The Painted Lady. Team Avatar travels to a fishing village where the people are starving and getting sick, and Katara decides to help them out by dressing up as a spirit called the Painted Lady. So it doesn't take long for the team to figure out what Katara is doing, and some Fire Nation soldiers, start causing trouble in the village, and she's basically forced to reveal herself to be a waterbender, and the villagers end up thanking her for saving them anyway, and they basically all work together to try to fix the river, to try to unpollute the river. And it's a pollution message. It's just a simple pollution message, pretty straightforward. Then episode 4 of season 3, Sokka's Master. And Sokka, it feels like he's not able to contribute much to the team, so he ends up looking for a sword master to teach him swordsmanship. He manages to be taught. He manages to successfully be taught, and has to get his own sword made. So he ends up bringing back a meteor that had fallen from the sky at the start of the episode, and uses the meteorite in order to forge his new sword. So it is a very unique sword, unlike any other sword. Then episode 5, The Beach. Zuko, Azula, Mai, and Ty Lee all decide to go on a vacation to Ember Island, and they end up just kind of having some fun. Having some fun at the beach, and end up getting invited to a party. Things don't go well at the party, and so they retaliate by burning that whole place down. And they all have kind of a heart-to-heart. And we get to learn a bit about Mei and Ty Lee's backstories and about what their lives were like and the struggles they've had to go through. And we also see a very human side to Azula for a few brief moments. You see how she did not have a good relationship with her mother, and how their mother loved Zuko more than her, and how their mother thought of Azula as a monster. And it's a very human side to Azula that we don't really get to see, that we've never seen up till now. So this is the first time where you're like, oh, there might be more to Azula. Meanwhile, Team Avatar end up getting attacked by a man that has an eye painted onto his forehead and can blow things up using that. They're unable to fight him. Episode 6, the Avatar and the Fire Lord. Zuko ends up getting a scroll from Iroh, who is still imprisoned. It's telling him to figure out what the truth is behind his great grandfather's demise. Meanwhile, Aang goes on a spiritual journey and finds out the truth about Avatar Roku's past. And the two of them end up making the discovery that their pasts are actually quite interconnected, as Avatar Roku is the grandfather to Zuko's mother. That he is born of both the Avatar's bloodline and the Fire Lord's bloodline, and that only he has the power to restore balance to the world after the Avatar brings down the Fire Lord. That he must bring balance. And so that leads to the next episode, The Runaway. We've got 15 episodes left. Oh my god. Okay. Okay. So it's probably going to be like 3 hours 15 minutes to 3 hours 20 minutes in total. So I've still got like a little less than an hour left of content. Oh, this is tough. Oh, the things I do for you guys. So The Runaway. Toph discovers a way to make quick cash by conning con artists and basically using her her blindness and her earthbending to help her con people out of money. And Aang and Sokka get into it for a little. Bit, and then eventually they both think that it's starting to go a little too far. But Katara, being sick and tired of hearing people say that she's no fun, that she doesn't know how to have fun, Katara decides to pull off one massive scam with Toph. Unfortunately, it goes horribly wrong because the man who can blow things up with his mind shows up again, and they have to quickly make a quick getaway and find a way to get away from him. And when they get away from him, Sokka ends up giving him the name Combustion Man. So next episode is the Puppet Master. Team Avatar ends up coming across a waterbender, an old lady who turns out to be a waterbender from the South Pole, and she reveals exactly why there are no waterbenders left in the South Pole. That they were all captured and brought to the Fire Nation, and she was the last one to be captured and the only one to escape imprisonment. And she's been hiding out on the Fire Nation ever since. But Sokka thinks that there's something off about her. He can't quite put his finger on what it is, but he knows something's off. Meanwhile, it seems like some kind of spirit is kidnapping villagers under the light of the full moon. They try to figure out exactly what's going on, and discover that in the mount that there's a cave in the mountain, and inside that cave are all the villagers that were captured. All the villagers that were captured. They had been captured and put there in that cave, and they discover that it's the old lady. The old lady has been capturing a whole bunch of Fire Nation citizens, and has been leaving them there to rot. And she's been doing this through bloodbending. And she teaches Katara how to do bloodbending, but Katara doesn't want to do it. And so when Sokka and Aang both show up, Hama, the old lady, starts bloodbending them in order to try to get them to fight her, and sends them both towards each other to try to kill them both. And Katara finally ends up using bloodbending on Hama, and bloodbends her into submission. But the fact remains that Hama won. She managed to teach Katara bloodbending. Bloodbending, and so now bloodbending is just something that Katara has. So the next episode, Nightmares and Daydreams. It's 4 days till the invasion, and Aang is feeling restless, and he's constantly having nightmares that everything goes wrong. And so he starts staying up a lot and starts hallucinating daydreams. Starts hallucinating a bunch of daydreams. His friends all try different ways of helping him, but nothing seems to be working. And then eventually, his friends manage to find a way to help him by shearing the wool off of a bunch of sheep, and making a giant fluffy bed using all of the wool that they took off. And they give him some words of encouragement and manage to actually get him to. So after that, it's episode 10, The Day of Black Sun, Part 1, The Invasion. It's invasion time. It's invasion time, and Sokka's father has gone around and gotten a whole bunch of allies from around the Earth Kingdom to help out with the invasion. And so so the invasion begins. And Zuko, after having gone to another war meeting in the previous episode, Nightmares and Daydreams, we didn't really get to see what the result of that war meeting was. That's going to be revealed later. But he goes to one, and now he goes to a picture of his mother and says that he's going to set things right. And then he goes over to Meg's room and leaves a note for her. Meanwhile, the invasion begins. They manage to get past the Great Fire Gates and the fire gates, and then they manage to get past the blockade. And they use submarines to get to the shore, and then they use submarines to get to the shore, and then the invasion begins. They fight and they fight. Sokka and Katara's father ends up getting injured, and Sokka has to take charge. Has to take charge of the army, and so he leads the army. And meanwhile, Aang heads to the Fire Nation Palace, and it's deserted. The Fire Lord is not there. And this directly leads into the Day of Black Sun Part 2, The Eclipse. Aang comes back. Aang comes back to the team and finds out. Aang comes back to the team and finds out that it tells everybody that no one was home. That no one was home. That they knew this was happening. And Sokka says that the Fire Lord is probably in some kind of a secret bunker, so he can still lead his nation. So Aang, Sokka, and Toph all end up heading to find this secret bunker so they can take down the Fire Lord. So they get there, they get to the secret bunker, and they get to what they think is the Fire Lord's chamber, when it turns out to be Azula's chamber. And turns out Azula brought home a couple of Daily agents from Ba Sing Se, who have been working for her for several months now. And meanwhile, in the Fire Lord's actual chamber, Zuko shows up. Zuko shows up and confronts his father and finds out about what actually happened to his mother and about how she's alive and she was simply banished. And he tells his father about how he is going to join the Avatar, teach him firebending, and help him bring him down once and for all. And so, but unfortunately, both Ozai and Azula are cunning, and they end up wasting Zuko, Aang, Sokka, and Toph's time, and then the firebending starts coming back. The eclipse ends. Firebending comes back, and so they end up So they end up having to retreat, and it turns out, and then the submarines end up getting bombed, and so the youngest members of the invasion basically have to get on Appa and retreat, while the adults all surrender. So they leave. So Aang, Sokka, Katara, Toph, Haru, the mechanic's son, and the Duke. All seven of them end up leaving, and Zuko follows. Zuko once again is following after the Avatar, but this time not to capture him, but to try to join him. This leads into episode 12, the Western Air Temple. Oh, we're halfway done with the season. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm imagining that it's probably going to be like 3 hours and 20 minutes. So, the Western Air Temple, Team Avatar makes it there, and now they're back to their original plan of mastering all four of Aang mastering all four elements and fighting the Fire Lord before the comet arrives. And he's doing pretty good. He's doing pretty good already. He at this point he has mastered air, water, and earth. So he just needs a firebending teacher. And here comes Zuko. He shows up and wants to switch sides. He wants to join Team Avatar and help teach firebending. To Aang. But because of how he had the chance to join them before and chose to betray them, they obviously do not trust him. But then Combustion Man shows up once again, and Zuko risks his life to protect them. This act of self-sacrifice and willing to risk his own life to protect them shows them that he is trustworthy. And Katara still does not trust him, but Aang, Toph, and Sokka all agree that he is probably the best option they could possibly ask for, the best option for a firebending teacher that they could ask for. Katara reluctantly agrees to allow him to join. And then it's on to the firebending masters. Zuko discovers that his firebending is no longer as powerful as it once was, mainly because he would always rely on anger in order to have his firebending be as powerful as it was. But now he doesn't want to rely on anger. He doesn't want to rely on anger anymore, and so as a result, he his firebending is very weak now, and so him and Aang decide to go to a lost civilization, the ruins of a lost civilization called the Sun Warriors. And they were said to be the first people to learn firebenders that existed ages ago and have long since gone extinct. And they find out that no, they're still around. The Sun Warriors still exist. It's in small numbers, but they do still exist. And they end up coming face to face with dragons. They end up coming face to face with two dragons that end up seeing them as worthy of learning the secrets of firebending. And Aang and Zuko end up learning exactly what firebending is all about. It's not just destructive. It's life. It's all kinds of It's all kinds of colors. It's not. It can be very dangerous, but it can also be very beautiful. And after learning about this, Zuko's firebending is not only back, but it's stronger than ever. It's not only back, but it's stronger than ever before. And the two of them can finally start Aang's firebending training in earnest. Episode 14, The Boiling Rock, Part 1. Sokka finds out about the Boiling Rock, which is a inescapable prison, where, and it's the most likely place where his father was taken after the invasion ended. So Sokka and Zuko end up going to the Boiling Rock. End up going to the Boiling Rock in order to rescue his father. And when they're there, they discover that Suki is there at the Boiling Rock. She's been held prisoner here for quite a while. And Sokka, Zuko, Suki, and another prisoner of the Boiling Rock basically all work together in order to find a way to bust out. But then at the end, they hear that there's a new shipment of prisoners arriving at the Boiling Rock, including war prisoners. So Sokka takes the chance, thinking that his dad might be showing up. Meanwhile, the prisoner that they were going to help decides, I'm going to get out here right now. But he screws it up and gets captured. So they're not getting off the rock that way. They're not getting off the prison island that way. So then in Boiling Rock Part 2, Sokka's father did turn out to be one of the war prisoners that was on the new shipment. And so Sokka, Zuko, Suki, and Sokka's father, Hakoda, along with the prisoner that was recaptured, they all work together in order to find another way of leaving the island. Meanwhile, Azula, along with May and Ty Lee, show up, and Zuko and May have a heart-to-heart. And they manage to capture Team Avatar manages to capture the warden and use him as a hostage in order to get out of prison on the gondola. And so while they're there, Azula and Ty Lee end up fighting Zuko, Suki, and Sokka. And the prisoner manages to briefly get free and tell his men to cut the gondola line, knowing that would cause, knowing that there's no way he himself would survive if the line is cut, because it would fall into the boiling hot water below, and they would be burned alive. So, but then May shows up. May shows up and ends up stopping them from stopping the other soldiers from cutting the line in order to save Zuko. They manage to Team Avatar manages to get away, and Team Avatar manages to get away, and then Azula is about to punish May for betraying her by shooting her full of lightning, and then Ty Lee chi blocks her, and May and Ty Lee are both thrown into prison for betraying Azula. And then episode 16, The Southern Raiders. After being reunited with their father, Azula catches up to them at the Western Air Temple, and they have to make a break. They end up having to leave and separate again. So now the team consists of Aang, Katara, Sokka, Toph, Zuko, and Suki. It's the 6 of them. Hakoda, Haru, the Mechanic's son, the Duke, and the prisoner that escaped with them. The 5 of them all end up leaving. To escape somewhere else. Where the 6 main members of Team Avatar all go elsewhere. And after a talk with Sokka, Zuko discovers that the people responsible for raiding the Southern Water Tribe were a group called the Southern Raiders, and they're the ones responsible for the death of Katara's mother. So he decides to help Katara get closure by finding the Southern Raiders. What she decides to do once she finds them is her choice. So he finds them, and it turns out the leader of the Southern Raiders is not the same one who took Katara's mother from her. But they find out who is. They find out that it's the one who used to be in charge of the Southern Raiders, who retired just 4 years earlier. So they track him down. Face him, and Katara has the opportunity to take the life of the man who killed her mother, and she can't do it. She can't bring herself to do it. As much as she hates him and wants him gone, she can't bring herself to be the one to do it. But that doesn't mean she forgives him. No, she doesn't. She won't. She makes it very clear she will never forgive him for what he did. But by the end of the episode, she does tell Zuko that she is finally ready to forgive Zuko for betraying them at Ba Sing Se. She's ready to finally forgive Zuko and move on from that. Final 5 episodes. Final 5 episodes. 2 hours and 52 minutes. Okay. Episode 17. The Ember Island Players. All right, so the gang has settled on Ember Island, More specifically, they went to the royal family's old vacation home on Ember Island, and according to Zuko, it's the last place anyone would think to look for them. So Sokka sees a poster for a play about them. The play is called "The Boy and the Iceberg," and it is. They go to see it. It's a play about their lives. They decide to go. They decide to go see it, and it is basically a recap of the whole series, filled with lots of comedy, lots of jokes. And by the end of it, they hated it. They thought it was garbage. They thought it was an awful. They thought it was an awful play. They thought it was an awful play. Yeah, it was a really funny it's a really funny episode. I do enjoy that episode. I think it's really funny. And finally, Sozin's Comet Part 1, The Phoenix King. Zuko tells the team that his father plans on using the comet to completely wipe out the Earth Kingdom entirely, and that's why Aang has to beat him. If he doesn't beat them, by the time the comet is done passing by the planet, there will no longer be a planet to save. And he learned this in the war conference that he went to in the Nightmares and Daydreams episode, and that's when we find out exactly what that conference was all about. Aang is really distraught about this information because he's being told by everyone that he has to kill the Fire Lord, that he has no choice, that he has to take someone's life when that goes against literally everything he was ever taught as a monk. And so he is distraught. He doesn't know what to do. And then in the middle of the night, he starts sleepwalking. And he goes and he swims out to this strange island in the distance. And then when morning comes, that island is gone. He wakes up on the island wondering where the heck he is. Meanwhile, the rest of Team Avatar is trying to figure out where Aang could be, and so Zuko decides to take the whole team to the Earth Kingdom to get June's help, the bounty hunter with the sheer shoe, in order to try to track his location. Sozin's Comet, Episode 2, The Old Masters. Sozin's Comet Part 2. Sozin's Comet Part 2, The Old Masters. In this, they try to get June to help, but the Shirshu can't detect where Aang is, and that shouldn't even be possible. June says that shouldn't be possible. So long as even if he was dead, even if Aang was dead, the Shirshu would still be able to find him. Which means if the Shirshu can't find it, it means it doesn't exist. She knows that Aang exists because, well, she's seen him before. The Aang actually exists. Aang does exist, so we know that for a fact. But for some reason, the Shirshu cannot figure out where Aang is. So, so then Zuko gets the idea to have her help him find Iroh, as Iroh is the only other person who can help defeat Ozai. So they go meet up with. They go to the outskirts of Ba Sing Se, to the outer wall, and just past the outer wall of Ba Sing Se, they end up meeting with a bunch of old masters. They meet Sokka's master, who taught him swordsmanship. They meet Zhong Zhong. They meet Katara's waterbending master. They meet Boomy. All four of them are there. And they all reveal that they're part of a secret organization called the White Lotus. And their leader is Iroh. Iroh is the leader of their organization. They take the gang to where Iroh is, and Uncle has a heart-to-heart with, and Iroh has Zuko has a heart-to-heart with his uncle, and apologizes in probably the most emotional scene in the whole series. It is the most emotional scene in the whole series, seeing Zuko apologize to his uncle for what he did, and seeing Zuko cry and hearing his voice really choke up, because of how much he's crying and how horrible he feels that he betrayed his uncle, the person who was always there for him, the person who was more of a father figure to him than his own father. And it's a very sweet scene, and I get choked up every time I see that scene. It's so heartwarming. And Iroh talks to the gang, and Zuko and Katara decide to go to the Fire Nation Royal Palace in order to bring Azula down and finally put an end to her once and for all. Iroh says that him and the other members of the White Lotus are all going to go to Ba Sing Se and retake Ba Sing Se in the name of the Earth Kingdom, and Sokka decides to go with Suki and Toph in order to help bring down the airships. In order to help bring down the airships that Ozai is planning on using to fly across the Earth Kingdom in order to wipe out the Earth Kingdom. So then, throughout the episode, Aang is talking to his past lives to try to figure out exactly what is best for him to do. What should he do? And every single past life he talks to tells him the same thing, that he needs to kill the Fire Lord. And then he makes a discovery that where he is on a moving island. So he dives into the water to try to figure out exactly what it is. And a giant paw lifts him up out of the water and rests him on a ledge, and reveals itself to be a giant lion turtle. And the lion turtle, the symbol of the lion turtle, is something that we've seen throughout the series. It's in the background. There have been statues of lion turtles. There was a book about lion turtles in the library that Aang was even looking at in that episode. So this is something that has actually been properly built up. It has been hinted that this is a creature that exists in the world. There have been several hints that this is a creature that exists in the world, and this is the first time we actually get to see what it looks like. Yeah, it's really cool. It's massive, and he basically reveals a secret to Aang and tells him, and basically shows him a way that he can win without killing Ozai. He can show him a way that he can win without killing Ozai. And we're left wondering exactly what that way is in that episode. Then Sozin's Comet Part 3, Into the Inferno. Sokka, Toph, Into the Inferno, Sokka, Toph, and Suki start destroying the airship fleet. They get onto one of the airships, take over it, and start ramming into all of the different airships to bring each of them down. And Aang begins his fight against Ozai, but is overwhelmed by Ozai due to his reluctance to kill him. Zuko starts fight, and Zuko begins to fight. Zuko begins to fight against Azula. And throughout these episodes, it seems Azula has been losing her mind, slowly going absolutely insane, because she sees enemies everywhere. She starts seeing enemies everywhere and thinking that literally everyone is against her, that everyone is going to betray her and try to kill her. And so she's just lost her mind entirely. She's gone crazy. And so Zuko thinks that he's going to be able to take her, and their Agni Kai is just beautiful. It's stunning. It's breathtaking to watch. But she, of course, decides to cheat and tries to use lightning to hit Katara. And Zuko ends up jumping out in front of Katara and ends up taking the lightning bolt. So none of these situations look very good in Part 3, Into the Inferno. But then that leads to Sozin's Comet Part 4, Avatar Aang, the final episode of the series. We're here. We're at the final episode. So Katara ends up fighting Azula now that Zuko is incapacitated. Sokka, Toph, and Suki all end up managing to destroy the last of the airship fleet. In the process, however, Sokka loses his boomerang, his space sword, and ends up breaking. And one of his legs ends up breaking. He breaks one of his legs. But they do manage to bring down the last of the. They do manage to bring down the last of the airships, and they manage to bring down the last of the airships. And meanwhile, Katara manages to trap Azula in ice and chain her up, finally defeating her, bringing Azula down, and then she heals Zuko. Aang, after being on the ropes from fighting Ozai, ends up going into the Avatar state and gets the upper hand on Ozai. And completely overwhelms Ozai. And just as he's about to deliver the final blow, he brings himself out of the Avatar state and declares that he's not going to do it. He's not going to end things by killing someone. And instead, he decides to use the new technique that the Lion Turtle taught him. He takes Ozai's bending away. He bends the spiritual energy within Ozai in order to take Ozai's bending away. And that's it. Aang did it. Aang defeated the Fire Lord, stopped the 100-year war, and finally brought about peace. Ozai is defeated. The army is defeated. Azula is defeated. It is a complete victory. In the aftermath, Zuko is crowned Fire Lord and declares to be working and declares that he will work alongside the other nations in order to rebuild the world, to rebuild the world and help heal the scars that the war has left on the world. Zuko and Aang become best friends and the entirety of Team Avatar, the entirety of Team Avatar, Aang, Katara, Sokka, Toph, Zuko, Suki, Iroh, Mai, Ty Lee, all 9 of them. The 9 of them are all at Iroh's tea shop, just enjoying company, just enjoying good company, and Aang and Katara go out onto the balcony, look out over the horizon, the beginning of a new era, an era of peace. They look each other in the eyes, and they finally kiss, professing their love for one another, and finally being together. And so ends the story of Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender. So, for season 3, the standout episodes for me, The Awakening. It was a really tough episode to sit through, not because it was bad, no, because it was really heavy. It was a really heavy episode, and like there were so many times when like you felt so bad for Aang in this episode. You felt so bad for Aang in the episode. It just like you understood just how tough the things were for him in that episode. And then the beach was also a standout episode because I loved seeing character development for Azula, Mai, and Ty Lee, and seeing like exactly what they've gone through in their life. That was really cool. And not gonna lie, seeing all the women of Avatar in their respective swimsuits was also a nice bonus. Shut up. Then the Avatar and the Fire Lord. Great to see. It was great to see Roku's whole backstory and see how the war started, and then the Puppet Master. I loved the Puppet Master when it aired. Oh, that is the Halloween episode. That episode is the Puppet Master is was basically the Halloween episode for the series. It aired like 2 weeks after Halloween, but like I personally see it as the Halloween episode for the series. It is by far the creepiest episode. It is by far the creepiest episode in the whole series. It was awesome. It was really cool. I really liked that. I really liked that episode, and I loved seeing bloodbending and learning about that, and that was awesome. That's just hearing that bloodbending. That's so creepy. That sends tingles down your spine. So cool. The Day of Black Sun 2-part episode was awesome. It was so cool. It was great to see this invasion that has been built up since the episode of the library. It's been 20 episodes. This has been nearly 20 episodes getting built up, and here it is. But because it's the halfway point of the season, it's not going to go well. That it's not going to end well because it's only the halfway point of the season. But it was still awesome. It was still awesome. I still really loved it. The Western Air Temple was also really good. It was great to finally see Zuko actually become part of the group, and make that full transition into good guy. The Southern Raiders was also a standout episode for this season. Really seeing a different side of Katara and seeing her rage and really what she can do in when she's serious. And it was really cool to see. It was really cool to see. The Ember Island players, I love that episode. I legitimately love the episode. It's so funny. It makes me laugh. It makes me laugh so hard. It's a very funny episode. It's a very funny episode. And I love all the different like little jabs it makes at like some of the events of the series, like how the Ember Island players basically just skips past the entirety of the Great Divide episode, and then they bring attention to the fact that Jet's death is made very unclear, because yeah, it was made very unclear in the show. So Jet is dead, but like his death was made very unclear at the time. So yeah, and then of course the 4-part finale to the series: Sozin's Comet, Part 1, The Phoenix King, Part 2, The Old Masters, Part 3, Into the Inferno, and Part 4, Avatar Aang. All of that, fantastic. Every single one of those was amazing. All of those episodes were absolutely fantastic. It was a perfect end to a perfect series. The perfect way to end. The perfect way to cap off this whole story. The perfect way to cap off this whole story. Every single character got a good amount of screen time, and they all had things that they did to contribute to bringing down the Fire Nation. Like it was great. It was flawless. The Avatar series is a flawless series. It is an incredible series. My favorite series of all time. Nothing tops it. Nothing. It is my favorite. It is my favorite show of all time. I can go back to this series and just rewatch it endlessly. I'm able to go back and rewatch this series endlessly and never get tired of it. That's just how much I adore this series. That is how much I adore this series. I love it so much. And if I had to if I had to say what my favorite characters were, I'll say my 3 favorites. Favorite character, Toph. Absolutely love Toph. She's so amazing. She is so amazing. Regardless of if she's in Last Airbender or Legend of Korra, she just steals the show anytime she's on screen. Second favorite character, Zuko. I love his story arc. His story arc is incredible. He has the best story arc in the entire series. He has the best story arc in the entire series, and he really is the second main character. The show has 2 main characters. It's Aang and Zuko. Like they are the main characters. Those two are the main characters, and then everyone else is like either a major character or a supporting character. But those are the 2 protagonists. Those 2 are the 2 protagonists of the series. And third favorite character is Iroh. Uncle Iroh. Just everyone needs an Uncle Iroh. Everybody needs an Uncle Iroh in their life. He is such a wonderful character. So inspiring. He has so many incredible lines that still stick with me today. So he's a wonderful character, and major respect. Major respect to Mako. Major respect to Mako, the voice actor who voiced Iroh for the first 2 seasons, who passed away between seasons 2 and 3. So major respect to him. Like he was a fantastic voice actor. But those are my 3 favorite characters. And that's not to say that the other characters aren't good. No, I love all the characters in this series. They're all fantastic. They're all fantastic characters. But those are the 3 standout ones that I absolutely adore. So, there you have it. Honest descriptions of every single episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. 61 episodes and 5 specials. That's 66 different episodes in total. This was something I have thought about doing for a while. I've thought about doing this for a while, but I wasn't sure when would be a good time to do it. So, here we are at the end of the road. 3 hours and 19 minutes. So, let me know in the comment box what your favorite episode was per season. Let me know who your favorite character is in the show. And let me know if you guys would like to see me do something like this for Legend of Korra when I reach 2,000 videos. Because I'm considering doing that for 2,000 videos. But that's going to be several years down the line because, yeah, this is my 1,000th video and it took me 9 years to get here. So, granted, we did take we have gone on hiatus enough times to have to bring that down from 9 years to 6 years. So, we'll see. But in any case, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. Thank you for being here for the last 9 years. Thank you for watching all 1,000 of my videos. And here's to another 1,000 videos across many more years to come. Thank you, everyone, so much. And I'll see you all next time. Take care.